Hold on. It says, I've never had this happen. Let me try again. Hang on.
Michael, stop.
Okay, there we go. Okay, guys. Hey, how are you? We had a few technical difficulties. I swear it seems like the more remote learning goes on, the more technical difficulties we are having. But I am so excited. It's Monday. I love to hop on Mondays and just talk about really meaningful learning. And so often that's what we talk about. That's what we chat about. But now we're kind of in this remote learning world. And so I want to, as I kind of go live each week, we've been diving into different aspects of remote learning. And I thought to myself this week, really a couple of weeks ago, a few of you that registered for this, and it's a week late. I'm so sorry. But that being said, I thought, how cool would it be to get some different perspectives on remote learning? So if you're joining us live, if you will take just a second and in the comments, introduce yourself, share where you're from, and feel free to share your thoughts as we talk. But we have a student with us, we have an educator, we have a parent. And so we're going to talk about this from several different perspectives. And I think it's going to be cool to just kind of see how it's impacted each one of us, because I think it's impacted everyone differently. That's one thing I've said a lot, is that no situation is the same. That's why we cannot do this in a way that is cookie cutter, or we can't do it in an out of the box situation. It really has to be something that is personalized and works for everyone. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to give you guys just a second to introduce yourself. So let's go through. We'll start with Trey, if that's okay. Trey, if you'll just kind of introduce yourself, tell us what grade you're in. We'll start there.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Trey Yannick. I'm from West Texas, and I'm in the 11th grade. I'm a junior, going to be a senior. And, it's affected me just as it's affected every other student that is going to school, K through 12. Everyone's going through the same thing. Everyone's having online assignments and things of that nature. But we kind of, it took a week or so to adjust to it and get everything, flown through. And we used Schoology. I don't know how many other schools use Schoology, but that's what we're mostly getting our assignments through and doing and turning them in. And, going through a routine to use email more regularly and, taking pictures of our assignments and things of that nature. But I think we've all, well adjusted to it, at least the people that I know, my friends and people I've talked to about it.
Very cool. And we're going to talk about, some of the things that have been really difficult, because I think you're so right. I think a lot of people have adjusted well to this. And then there are those that haven't adjusted well. I've talked to students who are struggling with this, my own kids. A couple of them are having a hard time with this. And then talking about some of the good things about remote learning. And then we're going to dive into what have we really learned from this experience. Okay, Jen, you want to introduce yourself? Yeah, it's hard. Now you got to remember to unmute.
And click the right button still. Hi, I'm Jennifer Marshall Higgins. I have two 11-year-old boy-girl twins, and they go to China Spring ISD, the intermediate school, and I work also in education.
Very cool. All right, Lisa, your turn. Perfect.
Me?
Yep. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Lisa.
Okay, I'm having some lag.
Oh, okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Lisa Truitt. I'm an educational diagnostician, also in China Spring. And for those that may not know, that means I participate in the special education side of things. I test students to see if they have learning disabilities, autism, things of that nature, and then help develop their school plan.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to get Lisa's perspective as far as struggling learners go, what this has looked like for them, and the impact that it's had on their learning. We can talk about also this other side of that, gifted learners. Really, every type of learner has been affected by this in a different way. And so that's why I'm really excited about getting these different perspectives. Okay, so we're going to start with this question. Let's start with the hard part first. What do you guys think has been the most difficult part of remote learning? And anybody jump in, even if we have that awkward, everybody starts talking at the same time.
I would say just kind of figuring out the technology, both from the student and the parent, and just getting past that frustration if something doesn't get submitted or you have to click 2 buttons or go to another place. That was challenging at first.
Yeah. So as a parent, Jen, what are some things that you guys did to help with that as you were trying to figure out the technology that was being sent home or that maybe the kids were already using in the classroom? What are some things that you had to do to kind of get around that learning curve?
Sure. Well, initially I asked for paper copies for one of my kids because she just does better with paper. And we did that for a couple of weeks just to transition to technology. And then really talking to the teachers, leaning on some of my friends in education like you, Andy McNair, where I would say, hey, I'm not sure what to do. I don't feel like this is really working. And I was encouraged to talk to the kids' teachers and ask them if something could be done a different way or maybe on a different subject, something that would be more interesting to one of my kiddos. So I think the best thing was really just opening up that dialogue and continuing to communicate with the teachers.
Yeah, I think that communication piece is key. Like, I think so many teachers are willing to do different things or try different things, but they don't know what's happening at home unless you tell them. And so I think that is a huge part, is that communication piece of staying connected. And one of the things that we've kind of talked about, I don't remember who I was talking to last week, is what if that part stayed, right? How long have we wanted that homeschool connection to be there? And what if that part was still valuable even after this, in that we still did Zoom calls with our parents once a week, even if we go back into the classroom? I think that could be a game changer for sure. Mm-hmm. Trey, as a student, what has been most difficult for you in this whole remote learning experience?
Sort of the same thing, taking pictures of assignments and teachers saying it's blurry or they can't read it, or having to, resubmit it multiple times. And, my phone storage is backing up because I'm taking 20 pictures a day of pieces of paper. But those sorts of things, and, things of how to navigate through certain websites that we'll be using, like Khan Academy, or, just other websites that we'd be using, platforms to.
Andy, ask your question again or make your statement again.
Okay, so Trey's sharing right now what the most difficult part of remote learning is. So now can you hear me? Maybe it's a little better now. I think she still has.
Yeah, I'm just getting it broken up and loud.
Okay. I'll put the question in the comments because we can hear you. Trey's going to share how remote learning is difficult for him, and then I'm going to go to you. So we'll see how the connection is when I get to you, and if it's better. I think we can hear you. I think you're just having trouble hearing us. Okay, Trey, go ahead and share. So you were saying pictures on your phone are messing up your storage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's just how to navigate through certain websites and stuff when it's hard to talk to your teacher. I think that's the biggest hindrance of this whole, situation is it's easier to raise my hand in class and say, Miss Woodard, I don't know how to do this, versus, having to write an email or having to text her back and then wait for her to see that, then respond back to me, and then make sure I'm checking it as frequently. And, I could have a problem in a class and send a message, and an hour later I'm doing a different subject. I forgot the problem and I got the answer. So it's just little things like that I really encounter that I'm having problems with.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just not having that instant access that is there when you're in the classroom with your teacher. Are there some things that your teachers have done? What are some things that your teachers have done to be accessible for you guys? Have they done office hours, or has it been like, can you connect with them anytime? What does that look like for you guys?
There's been office hours, but I've found, and my friends have found, that it's much easier to write an email to your teacher or a Schoology message, and within 5 or 10 minutes, they usually write back, or they're on their computer frequently. I mean, I know my mom and dad both, they wake up at 7 o'clock, from 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock, they're on their computer. So, there's really no excuse not to see it. But I'd imagine my teachers are doing the same with how fast they respond to our questions. And of course, we have Zoom meetings and office hours and just things of that nature. It's been I would say the biggest thing I've had to adjust with is email. I know, especially my friends, we don't check our emails frequently as we check our text messages or our phones or something of that nature. And sometimes I know you could have email on your phone, but it doesn't send a notification all the time. And that's had to be a regular thing I do when I power my computer, is go to my email and check my email and check my Schoology messages and check all of those things to make sure that I don't have anything that's overdue or is asked of me.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, Trey, because I really struggle sometimes with checking email as much as I do my phone for that same reason. Because on my phone I get notifications. I don't necessarily get notifications for email. And so thinking through that, that's such a good point that you guys are learning how to kind of prioritize things based on how you're communicated with. Because, beyond the classroom, really so many people communicate in different ways. And so you being able to navigate those text messages and the email, that's really a skill that is going to benefit you in the long run, even if it's a little bit of a pain right now. So that's a great point. All right, Lisa, can you hear me? I think it just takes a second. Can you hear me now, Lisa? Maybe she can't. Okay, I'm going to send her a message in the private chat. But we are going to go ahead and talk about what has been the best thing about remote learning. Jennifer, you want to go?
I would say flexibility. Flexibility with deadlines. I think at least in our case, as long as the teachers have seen that the students are working, they're not as concerned with the due dates, just as long as they're steadily submitting their homework and communicating with the teachers. So the other thing that I think is really good is getting them in the habit of communicating through email. That's something they're very much not used to, and communicating through the instant messaging. They're using Google Classroom. So I've liked that. I've liked the flexibility, and there's more communication between me and the teachers.
Yeah, isn't that interesting that this has resulted in more communication between us and the educators? I think that's same for me. I mean, with my kids, I know more of what they're doing now, obviously, because they're doing it at home. But just that communication has grown. And I think that opportunity to, like you said, be more flexible. And I think we've realized, I know that from the education standpoint, that's kind of been a big realization, is that, you know what, everything has to happen at the same time. And we have to do things during a time frame. I think that mindset is starting to shift. Like, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Okay, so Lisa cannot hear me, but she can hear Jen. So Lisa, if you can hear me, go ahead and tell us what has been the most difficult thing about remote learning for you. I don't think she can hear me. Okay, Trey, what about you? What's been the best thing about remote learning?
The flexibility. I totally agree with that. Some classes that I've been in is, we drag a subject out 2 or 3 days long, and I know I can finish a subject in 15 minutes, and then other class periods we're expected to, finish one subject in 50 minutes, and I need 3 days to finish it. So at this pace, usually I set a kind of little bit of a schedule, and I get like my elective classes done first. The classes that I know can get done that make sense to me and easy to me, that'll leave me 2 or 3 days to finish other harder subjects like pre-calculus or English or other classes that require more time for me to learn stuff. I can finish my aerospace class in 20 minutes, but then pre-cal might take me 2 days, an hour each day to just concentrate and do it. But it reminded me a lot of my dual credit classes that I've been taking through MCC. Sometimes we don't have a professor that comes to our school, so it's much of it's online, and most of our assignments and tests are online. So it really wasn't that big of an adjustment. It's just instead of having like 1 or 2 classes like that, you have 8 classes now that you have to, take online. But I think it's been a good adjustment. We're making it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You learning how to prioritize. Go ahead, Lisa.
Go ahead, Andy.
No, you go ahead. If you can hear me, you go ahead.
I can kind of read your lips a little bit. I think for me, I'm going to go back to the most challenging thing because I didn't know we'd moved on. The most challenging thing, I think, from the special education perspective has been making sure that individual student needs are being met, because while a majority of kids can jump into a Google Classroom, and our special ed kids can too, depending on their level of need, it is difficult to be sure that they're getting that support that they're used to getting at school. At school, teachers, we have a list of accommodations for kids. We know which kid needs extra time or needs special instructions or needs their work more structured. And the parents may or may not be aware of exactly what that means. I mean, we talk about it and we define it in ARD meetings and we try to answer questions, but until you're actually asked to do it, you may not understand the depth of what some of the kids really need to be successful. And I think it's been hard for the parents because they've never had to do that before and they don't know how to help that kid with that particular type thing. They can help them with homework and they can help them with practicing things that they're trying to learn by rote, but sometimes to explain it, break it down in small steps or provide the supports that they need can be difficult. So that's been very challenging. That and monitoring individual student progress has been challenging for my teachers. The best thing about the remote learning, I have to agree with our parent and student participant that the flexibility it allows, not only for the students, but also for the teachers. I know that my teachers all have Google Classroom times assigned. On Tuesday, Thursday, they're like, you can come in for this amount of time and I'll help you in addition to whatever videos they may be sending out and all that. And so sometimes only 1 or 2 kids show up. So those kids are really getting some very individualized instruction on exactly what they don't understand, rather than having to listen to what the whole class doesn't understand, or, does that make sense? Kind of. So that's been a good part of it. I really like the flexibility, and I like that our teachers have been flexible somewhat in understanding that, okay, this kid doesn't normally turn this in this manner. So maybe we could just get an oral report or we could get a video or something like that. I hope teachers across the board are being flexible. But that's the part I like the best, I think, and everybody working at their own pace.
Yeah, that personalized learning, I think, is huge and it makes a difference anyway in the classroom. But gosh, we haven't had a choice now. I think our students have really been thrown into, and Trey, you could probably speak to this, that whole where you're having to drive your learning. You're having to make decisions that you probably haven't had to make before. People have usually told you, you're turning this in tomorrow in class. And now that time frame doesn't exist. So that whole setting priorities, making decisions, those are things for so long that the world beyond the walls of the classroom, they've been saying, look, these are things that these kids have to be able to do. And so now we've been put into the situation, and I say it all the time, we can choose to see this as an obstacle or an opportunity, and it's both. But one of the opportunities that we're seeing is that they are being able to practice those life-ready skills that we know that they're going to need, and not just practice them in that weird way that we sometimes do in the classroom, but practice them in a very authentic way where they're not practicing them just for the sake of doing it. Like, they're not learning collaboration, they're collaborating. They're not learning communication, they're communicating. And so I think that has been one of the benefits of this experience, is that they're able to do those things in an organic way versus, today we're going to practice communication. It's like, today you're either going to communicate or you're not going to get things done. I think, which has been cool. Trey, would you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am. It's a very genuine application of the skills that we're going to need in workspace or in college. That's going to prepare us for the future. I know once I go to at a bigger university, I'm going to be on my butt, kind of, because mom's not going to be there to tell me, you're trying to send me to do this. So, it's teaching me, my mom, she still has to do her job and work her job. So, she can't be telling me, Trey, it's time to wake up. Trey, it's time to go, do this assignment. I either get it done or I fail. So it really, it's been a good experience to kind of, like you said, practice in the real world and actually apply it in a genuine, authentic situation that we would be using it in the future.
Yeah, that's so true. I love what you shared about your mom not being able to always, kind of walk you through everything. I think that's one thing we're learning as parents too. We want to help our kids. Like, we want them to be successful. So I think a lot of us probably started this journey with, all right, I'm going to walk you through everything and I'm going to be your teacher and we're going to have a schedule. We didn't even try that at the McNair house, but I know a lot of people did. Jen did. And so Jen, I'll let you share. Just let me share this real quick. I think that for me, that was never really the case, just because I knew that wasn't our reality. But I did have some really high hopes that I realized were probably not going to be the situation pretty early on. Like, I really thought we were going to be able to do some things that the reality was we just couldn't do, partly because of what Trey just shared. I'm working all day from home. My husband is an essential worker, so he's outside the home. And, our reality just wasn't what I envisioned. Jen, you had a schedule?
Yes, I drew it out on a poster, and I let them just kind of go at their own pace and do whatever they wanted the first few days. And that wasn't working real well. So then I had a schedule, and I said, you'll do 2 assignments in the morning, and then you'll have break, and then you'll have recess, and then you'll have 2 more assignments in the afternoon, and then you'll have more recess. And they really did not follow that at all. But I think it helped them see, okay, if I kind of think about doing something each day, but I get to choose which subjects that I'm going to do, then they appreciated that, and they took more of it. They took more ownership of their learning. So that was nice. But I'm one of those rule followers, and so I really was looking for that schedule, and I wanted someone to tell me, okay, the kids should be doing this at A time and this at B time. And I'm sure they have appreciated not having me hover over them, and really let them be independent learners and choosing what they want to learn and how they want to do it and apply it. So that was interesting. My poster did not go too far.
It's a thought that counts.
Yeah.
I think for me, expectations that didn't actually happen. I don't know. Hold on. People are coming in my house. Sorry.
I totally understand. This is a story of my life. I'm on a call and my family comes in loud.
Expectations that didn't happen. Actually, I've been pleasantly surprised overall. I've been pleasantly surprised that teachers, we've got a lot of old school teachers that have done it the same way for 20 years, and they can't even get online to submit their attendance every day. And yet they're transitioning. I'm on a call. They're transitioning into a technological world that I don't think they would have to. They can see you. Just kidding. That they don't think that they would have to. I've just been surprised by that part. And don't get me wrong. At first, when they were saying, you need to have assignments on a Monday, we had some teachers that just sent home 30 worksheets. Mm-hmm. But, quickly, as soon as we found out about that, we came back and retransitioned. So that part's been great. I think something that didn't happen that I expected to was probably, I think parents were a little too hard on their own kids in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because, they're at school for 8 hours a day, so they need to be doing stuff for 8 hours a day. And, and also just these poor parents not only have to continue to raise these children, and many of us are continuing to work full time, but now they have to teach them too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't had a math class since I was a freshman in college. So, thank goodness mine are all out of the house. There's no way. In fact, my nephew needed help today with a math thing, and I had to call my cousin Christy, who's a math teacher, because I couldn't even find it on Google. So I think overall, I've been pleasantly surprised by the transition, and surprised at really, in a lot of ways, how easy it's been.
Yeah, I remember early on seeing schedules from educators, and even seeing like some time things. So like, this should take your child an hour. This should take your child 30 minutes. And the reason I really struggled with that is because as a parent, first of all, every learner is different. We know that. But also as a parent, if you tell me that my kid needs to do it in 30 minutes and it takes an hour or it takes 2 hours, I'm going to wonder why my kid can't do it in the amount of time that the teacher suggested. I'm going to start questioning, is there something wrong? It's going to cause more tension. And I think we've learned, and I think that has been one of the lessons over this time, is we don't have any reason to cause any more stress. We're not just out of school for the sake of being out of school. We are out of school in a very stressful, high anxiety situation. And so I think that flexibility that we've repeated over and over again has been key to so many of the success stories that I've heard. Just that willingness, and that's what it is. It's a willingness to be flexible and to see things from a different perspective. So that takes us to our next question. Our last question is, how has remote learning changed your perspective on education? So Trey, as a learner, kind of how has this experience, because that's really what it's been, right? It's left an impression on us all for sure. How has this experience kind of changed how you see learning and education in general?
Well, that's a very intricate question for each person. Like y'all say, each person learns differently. But for me, I think there's obviously withdrawals to this whole situation for the seniors, and for some of my friends that were seniors that I played football with. They're not going to be able to see any of us again. And they are going off in the real world and going to college, and they're doing things that that they're going to have to learn the hard way, about education. But I mean, this is exactly what college is. You're learning on your own basis, and you really decide who wins or loses. It's not anybody else's fault. It's not your parents' fault. It's not your professor's fault. It's your fault if you don't do what you have to do. And it's not like it's completely hard. It's just a matter of wanting to do it, have the will to do it. So to answer the question in a straight way, I think some of the things that our teachers told us, you're going to need to know this in the future. You're going to need to use this in the future. It's really like kind of clicking right now, going, yeah, I should have listened to, Miss Wooder, my other teachers. But that's what, especially, taking exams and stuff like that. Like Miss Lowers taught me, as my English teacher, she taught us a lot of things to get ready for college and be, ready for college. And, sure enough, we're using them right now, saying, oh, I should remember what Miss Lauer told me, 2 years ago. Now it's going, okay, Miss Lauer told me this, 6 weeks ago. Now I'm using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like you guys are getting a jump start on using those skills. And who knows what school's going to look like from now on. I mean, I think that's a big conversation right now. And I've been blessed to be in on some of those conversations of what is this going to look like moving forward. And I think one of the things that's going to come out of this is that students will, I think that willingness to hear that whole, you're going to use this in the future. I think you guys will be a little more like, oh, maybe we will. And I mean, the reality is there are going to be things at school that you're probably not going to use in the future. But I think that as educators, the flip side of that is we're starting to realize, you know what, there are so many things that we didn't fit into the school day that we should have. That can we take some of those things out that don't need to be there? And what can we replace that we've learned through this experience needs to be there? And that is my hope, is that you guys learn as students and as learners what real learning looks like and what it looks like to experience learning. And so much of that you did at school, but now you're doing it in a really authentic way. But then my other hope is that we as educators look to you guys for feedback. That was the whole goal of this kind of Facebook Live, is that we guys, I need a Dr. Pepper. We look to you guys and are able to say things like, what was the feedback like? Or what did you like from this experience that we can now take with us into the future and moving forward? So that was great. I love that you shared that. All right, Jen, what do you think? How has remote learning changed your perspective?
Well, it's made me realize that my kids are much more independent than I thought they were. And that makes me proud of them. They actually both have some learning challenges. One is dyslexic and one has some attention focusing issues and anxiety. And so it's been good to see how they manage that learning. But it also makes me expect and want more from them, for them, and from the teachers. I do want to see them grow in their technology skills. And also I want them to be able to have more experiences like you're saying. It's almost like that to me just feels so natural when they get to experience it and then apply it. And especially when they're getting to experience things that they're interested in. I want to see more of that.
Yeah, I love that. Very, very cool. All right, Lisa. She can't hear me for some reason. Let me message her.
I think ready for me. Okay. I think for me, it's changed my perspective in some ways. The old saying is those who can't teach. And I've always hated that. Teachers they're teaching every profession in the world. That's where everybody gets their basis. And while I can see that, I personally think a lot of time is wasted in schools. But there's discipline and there's waiting for the slower ones and all of that kind of thing. But I would like to see our education more streamlined. I hope that we never go back to normal. I would like to see technology integrated in classrooms across the board because we can. I mean, we're proving that we can. I think that my biggest perspective just is that hopefully parents are seeing that when they jump in and help, the kids make so much more progress than just what they can get at school. But I would like to see, I don't know what would work best, reduce school days so that kids have more time for those real world type experiences. You know, if you've got parents that work full time, that may not be viable. I don't know. I also think that the perspective that we could get so much further for every kid if we had fewer kids in a classroom. The highest could make more growth. Certainly your lower could make more growth, and your middle of the road kids could definitely make more growth just by reducing the number of kids in classes. It just would be wonderful. Of course, you know, those of you familiar with China Spring, I don't know where we would put any more classrooms right now. They'd have to sit on top of the building or something, but you know, this ability for students to get so much one-on-one time or very small group time with their teachers has been invaluable. And just the fact that we're proving that we can do it. You know, we always hear the system's broken and teachers aren't any good and everything, this, and this. And our teachers, and when I say our, I mean across the board, across the nation, teachers have risen to the challenge, and they've completely changed the way that they taught in a very short amount of time. And I think we've proven that the problem with the system isn't the teachers, and it's not the parents, and it's not the students. So I don't know what's holding everybody back, but, you know, students are stepping up for the most part. Parents, I think, for the most part, are doing the best they can. You're always going to have people that don't participate and don't help themselves and that type of thing. But I think by and far, we've shown that we can do it, we can adjust, and everybody can continue to make progress.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Trey.
One thing that Miss Lisa said that I completely agree with is the integration of technology into our school. I mean, I know at least half of my classes as a junior in high school, we had to walk in and put our phones in a cubby. And now, if we didn't have a phone or a laptop, we wouldn't be able to do our work. And so, you know, I feel like the phone is seen as obsolete in our school nowadays. And then now, you know, sure enough, that's where we're with the situation, and technology is the only way out of it. So, as a student, that's one thing that, you know, I really have feedback on that I would agree with.
I agree with that too. And I think that, like I said, we waste a lot of times in classrooms. I'm sorry, but sitting down and filling out a worksheet, there's just not anywhere in the real world where you do that anymore. Even in my job, which is pretty much 90% paperwork, it's all online, it's interactive. You know, I think teaching kids how to sit down at a desk and fill out a worksheet is a complete waste of everyone's time, and it causes a lot of battles. I love that I follow some Facebook site called Teacher Memes, and they're constantly putting stuff like, you know, we're doing all this Google Classroom and turning in Google documents, and kids have figured out how to go in and submit an empty document so it looks like they've done their work, but they haven't. You know, and it takes a few days for their parents to find out that they submitted it, or they're going in and changing things, or they're changing the questions. And I'm like, that's smart. That's thinking, that's learning, that's applying skills. Thank you, BB. You know, and I love that. But I think kids have to be taught how to think and how to find the information. And, you know, that's what I hear our young man student saying, is that, you know, he's having to figure some things out for himself, and it's going to suit him in the future.
And they have to be given the opportunity to do that. I think that's a big word, is if we don't give them the opportunity, if we don't give them the definition of an opportunity is the chance to progress. Well, if we never give that, then how does that ever happen? And so I love that conversation. And I think there's so many things that we were doing a lot right in education. But I think what this experience has kind of brought to the light, or kind of brought to the surface, is there were some things that we weren't doing right, or there were some things that we could do better. And that's the case everywhere. I mean, it doesn't matter what situation you were in when this all began. There is an opportunity now to look at it from a different perspective and to say, you know what are some things that really stood out as what we're doing well, and what are some things that we could work on? And I think for education, technology has definitely been one of those things. And I think to take that conversation even further, it's meaningful technology, right? We've wasted a lot of time using technology that isn't meaningful just for the sake of using it. right? We're going to use this tool because it's what everybody else is using, or we're going to use this tool because I have to check it off on my observation. And now we're starting to see that technology can play such a meaningful role. It doesn't always have to be there for something to be innovative or to be meaningful, but does it play a big role in this generation's learning experience? Absolutely. And I think, Lisa, some of those old school teachers that you talked about earlier, I think what they're starting to see, and gosh, some of my old school teachers that I had in school, I learned more from them sometimes than I did anyone else. But I think what they're starting to see is they can take what they believe needs to happen in a classroom and use technology to enhance that and to kind of still do things the way that makes sense to them, but do it in a way that, just like you said, streamlines it and makes it a little bit easier. So I want to make sure that I tell you guys, does anybody, let me wrap up with just giving you a second. Does anybody else have anything you want to share or any final words that you'd like to say before we hop off? Not all at once. Oh, now y'all are quiet. Okay. Well, I just want to say how much I appreciate all you guys. Let me tell Lisa what I'm saying, and I'm going to give her a second to respond. And I hate awkward silence more than anything. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up then. I think what I would say is just thank you, Trey, so much as a student for hopping on. Your perspective has just been invaluable. Just hearing what this looks like. I know that, we're talking to students, but I would just encourage educators to get feedback from your learners. Ask them, what do you want learning to look like moving forward? What are some of the things that we can take from this experience and weave into the school experience when we return, so that they are stakeholders in this and so that they become they begin to have real ownership of what this can look like, and not only what it looks like now, but what it can look like moving forward. So I'm fumbling over my words, so I definitely need a Dr. Pepper, and that is happening very soon. So if you guys don't have any final words, anything else, y'all are good? Okay. So I just appreciate you guys, Jen as a parent and Lisa as an educator, for hopping on and just sharing your perspective. It's been so great. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to put those in the comments. I'll pass them on to these guys. If you get I'm going to send this out through my email list, and I'll also post it on social media. So if you have questions, comments, things you want to share, feel free to reach out, and I can always connect with these three to share. Okay, Lisa, were you going to say something else? Okay, I can't hear her. Okay, all right, I'm going to wrap up. We appreciate you guys so much for joining us if you were watching live. If you weren't watching live, like I said, I'll share this out with you soon. And I just appreciate you guys for joining and sharing your perspective for sure. All right. Bye, y'all.